Finally gotten around to watching Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. Full disclosure, I am a Ghostbusters fan. I have been ever since childhood. It's really hard not to find Ghostbusters cool. I mean, they managed to make this on top of everything else, you know, beyond the concept, etc. Incredible film where somehow, when you watch it nowadays as an adult, you're like, how were they able to pass this off as a kid's film? You know, just the way, the things that are in it, what people say, you've got people smoking, you've got an implied ghost blowjob and all sorts of things. It's just like, not sure I would show that to a 6-year-old nowadays, you know, on top of obviously some of the imagery being actually quite horrific, you know, beyond what they would usually have probably at this age. But yeah, I've always liked Ghostbusters. I had toys when I was little, I watched the TV show, all these kind of things. I love the second one in particular. Obviously it's not as good, but as a kid you don't really care about that too much, do you really? Yeah, as far as other Ghostbusters films go, I only haven't seen the attempt at the 2016 reboot. I didn't watch that, not because I'm a big hater or anything. I know it was a big thing back then, you know, obviously people took it in a silly direction. It's like, it's a bunch of women, so you know. Instead of everything I have heard from this film just proved to me that my instinct upon seeing the trailer was like, I don't think this is going to be a good film, you know. Obviously it wasn't, you know, so, but anyway, that's the only one I haven't seen, right? And I really liked Afterlife, which I had to pause it for a second because with the Ghostbusters Afterlife, there's always this moment in my head. I've done a review for that, by the way, on this channel. I'll leave a link to that at the end of this video. But every time I have to pause for a moment because for some weird reason, I live in Austria, if you don't know, German titles, most often they might have some kind of translation going on or something. Sometimes they just use a subtitle that is also English, but they sometimes decide that they have to use a different English word than what they actually had. So what you in the majority of the world will know as Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is a cool name. It's referencing, you know, ghosts, afterlife. It's quite a really good thing. It's also, you know, obviously it's a little meta thing with the life after the previous films. All these kind of things. In Austria, for some reason, they decided to call it Ghostbusters Legacy, which I guess you could say it's got to do with legacy and carrying it on, but that's really weird because thinking of the typical German-speaking crowd, they would have an easier time with the title Afterlife than they would with Legacy, because Legacy doesn't translate, you know, as easily into German word for word like Afterlife would do. Anyway, just a weird side tangent there, but I have to think about it every time I think about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I really enjoyed that film. I thought it was a really cool way to revive the franchise, but also sort of see if we could take it in some new directions in the future, etc. So I was really curious to see this. I just didn't make it to the cinema to watch Frozen Empire, but I've done so now on streaming. And yes, I've got mixed thoughts on it. Now, I saw a comment online, which I'm not going to present as my own opinion, but I certainly agree with it quite a lot, which is that it's a good Ghostbusters film. You know, if you're a fan of Ghostbusters as a franchise, you'll like it, but as a film, you know, when you think about cinema and how films are constructed, it kind of falls short in various ways, right? Let's talk about the plot briefly though before we jump into that. The plot is we are still stuck with the family of 4 that we know from Ghostbusters Afterlife. So you've got the 2 kids. I'm sorry, I really didn't write down the names or anything, but I don't think it's that important. You've got the 2 kids with the mother, and you've also got the surrogate father, I'll call it, the stepfather, if you will. Yeah, they used to be out in the country, they are now in New York, so we are in New York in the classic Ghostbusters fire building, etc. And they are busting ghosts, right? Yeah. They stumble upon, because we expand the world, which is something I will talk about. We expand the world, we bring in other people. We've got scientists. There's a cool lab that Winston, the good old Ghostbuster known from the OG films, he set up this big lab where they really, you know, get stuck into all these artifacts and ghosts and analyze them, etc. It's really cool. This orb is the main thing of the film. It is sold to Ray Stantz, Dan Aykroyd's character, in his weird occult shop, I'll call it. It's sold to him. And this orb is basically the main plot driving device because yeah, something is going on with this orb, and I won't tell you because I want to spoil the plot too much for you, but it's very obvious that this is what's going on very early on in the film. And this is going to turn into an issue. And so we see that side of things. So we have got typical ghost activities going on with even a big bad, because somehow, for some reason, they find that really necessary in these films, which is something I'll also talk about in a minute. And the side plot is that we've got the daughter, Phoebe, who in the first film I was kind of okay with, but she felt like a bit too smart, even for a really science nerdy girl. She felt like, you know, she just had all the answers a bit too easily. It was a bit over the top in my opinion. She's not quite that like this. I like they've toned her down a bit while she's still, you know, nerdy and knows answers to a lot of things. It also makes more sense this time around because she is older, delving deeper into these topics and physics and all these things, so it at least makes more sense now. But still, they've toned down the know-it-all, I'll call it, a bit. And it's a bit more about her, you know, being relied upon and feeling misunderstood by the rest of the family, in particular her, I'll call them parents. So we've got that emotional conflict going on. She also finds a friend in this film that she can confide in, and there's a bit of a back and forth there, you know. So those are the two aspects. We've got this orb causing problems in New York City, and we've got this sort of personal story with Phoebe, right? And apart from that, it does feel more or less like a typical Ghostbusters story. They're busting ghosts, there are problems that occur that need to be solved, you know. So that is all I'll tell you about the plot in that sense. The problem, in my opinion, is, I mean, there are a few, but first and foremost, there's just too many characters in this. So we've got all the characters from Ghostbusters Afterlife, we've got the OG characters coming in, and we've still got at least a good 3 or 4 more coming in, right? I mean, I love James Acaster. If you're from the UK, you'll be familiar with him. He's a comedian, if you don't know, a stand-up comedian, but he does a lot of other things. I really love him. He fits his role perfectly in this film, you know, it's just really excellent casting. I think he's good in it. But it's like, you know, he gets a lot to do, and then we've got Kumail Nanjiani comes in. He's the guy who sells the orb to Ray, and he gets quite a large part in the film. It's just like we've got too many characters to juggle, right? There's just too much going on. And then they can't really decide on what this film is going to be. Now, this is slightly spoilerish, so if you don't want to know anything about the film, you know, click away here now and return once you've seen it. But I feel this is really important because to me, the film's called Frozen Empire, right? It implies there's something big happening. You're expecting, obviously, New York to freeze over, etc. It does, but this doesn't happen until like the last 20 to 30 minutes in the film. And it's like, you know, we've spent quite a lot of time up to that point, and that's when it finally sort of kicks off. So there's not too much ghost busting going on. There is a big bad in here, which I have a problem with because I didn't feel it was necessary. I mean, I know it's called Frozen Empire, but I don't know, it feels like in this film, more than any of the others, it feels a bit tacked on. It's like, all right, we need a big bad, you know, at the end, and they have to be, you know, they have to defeat this big bad in the end. I don't know, it just didn't fit into this one so well. Also because the big bad they've got, in my opinion, is really overpowered in the sense that with a snap of a finger, everyone should have actually been dead at multiple points in this film. So the suspension of disbelief just took it a bit too far for my liking in this film. It's like the film is really having too many coincidences and favourable scenes and all that. And one other thing that I really disliked is I mean, well, obviously on the topic of ghosts, you can always say it's borderline on obviously supernatural, but all sorts of things. But in this film, they just outright bring magic into the fold, and it leaves a kind of bitter taste in my mouth because Ghostbusters, to me at least, they always still try and stay in the realm of science. You know, I mean, even when it comes to the ghosts, etc., they're talking about protons and atoms and all these kind of things. And then suddenly we bring actual magic into the fold, and it's like, it didn't fit well. It didn't sit well with me. And I wish they had somehow found a different way to address this, to yeah, not having to resort to magic in the story. So yeah, it's various things. You've got a lot going on with a lot of characters. It feels like we don't really get to spend enough time, especially, I mean, Phoebe, because she is the sort of main focus of a lot of the story, she's kind of okay, but the three others that we got to really know in Ghostbusters Afterlife, there's so little of them in this film, it's really kind of bad. And then I get that it's cool to see the OG Ghostbusters in it, but then you're thinking, you know, we had that with the last one, do we need this again, you know, or at least do we need it to this extent? Because they're actually in it a lot more than I expected them to be. And obviously they are taking away some screen time, so I don't know, it feels a bit like they've got multiple things going on. Maybe they should have sort of separated them all into their separate, you know, things, whether they be films or books or whatever medium you choose, but it felt like a bit too much for this film, right? That's what I'll stick with. So it's an enjoyable film, it's a fun ride. It's just, and again, it's a good Ghostbusters story, it's fine in that aspect, although I would have enjoyed to see a bit more ghost busting, sort of just random small ghosts, you know, it doesn't always have to be big bads. But I would have enjoyed a bit more to sort of have a better constructed film that was maybe a bit more streamlined, a few characters cut, you know, maybe a few sections of the story that didn't feel really necessary, leave them out, focus more on the characters. Yeah, I feel that they could have done a bit more. I don't know if there's going to be another one. It was sort of mildly financially successful, I believe. So it would probably be a bit of a dodgy situation going forward, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I'll always support the franchise, so that's why I watched it now as well, because I enjoyed it. Yeah, I did enjoy it. So if you're a fan, you'll definitely like it. That I can tell you very much. If you don't care about how films are made and structure and characters and all these kind of things, you might not even notice these things, right? That's just really my opinion, okay? That will be all from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It is the best way to support this channel. Leave a comment down below, especially if you think that I'm absolutely wrong and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is a lot better than I'm saying. You're obviously entitled to your opinion. But yeah, I mean, tell me. I mean, wouldn't be the first time that I would decide to change my mind if someone points something specifically out to me. All right? I am a fan of the franchise. I really liked Afterlife. I really enjoyed that quite a lot. And as I said before, I'll leave a link to my review of that here at the end of this one. I'll thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video on Flying Wiener. Take care.